Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. If they even let me post this bad boy, because the last time I did a live, it got fucking lost somehow. What's up, Yish, man? How y'all doing, man? I got a bunch of shit to talk about. I'll probably be running long. I know it's y'all Sunday night, but should be a pretty good one. Man. If you guys got any questions or anything you want to talk about, any things, it's a wide range of topics tonight, so we can go in on a lot of stuff. It's gonna be a lot of range. Thank you guys for joining me. Again, you'll find this whole live on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. If you aren't able to watch the whole thing, it'll be on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. And it's $4 a month. And then if you want to get, I got like my audio biography where it's like my whole life. It's $13 a month. But you could just get that for 1 month and listen to the whole thing and then revert back to $4 a month after that. So I give at least 4 hours of content. I've already given 4 hours of content this month, but I probably do like 2 to 3 hours right now. And then I'm looking to do something with my brother next Sunday, but next Saturday I'm definitely gonna have a special guest that I feel like will be very informative and to be really good for people to get their perspective. And they're a very well versed person, so it's always nice to have discussions with somebody that has a big knowledge base. So next Saturday will be probably around like 5 or 6 o'clock my time. I'm in Switzerland right now, so I'm 5 hours at. Well, yeah, yep. It'll be the 29th. Daylight savings here is March 30th, but so it'll be the 29th. So I'll still only be 5 hours ahead of East Coast time next Saturday. So I think we'll start around 5 o'clock my time. And so it'll be noon Eastern next Saturday. It should be an action-packed live with a lot of stuff. You know, a lot of, I got a bunch of things we're going to go through in that. And I think that I just want to get this live off just to like kind of dust off the remainder of what I got for the rest of this moon cycle, some of the things I've been studying and experiencing in my life, and starting the new moon. I think the new moon is next Saturday, so we'll be starting the new moon off right, and it'll be a really informative and really helpful live around noon Eastern next Saturday. So BlackRock trying to bankrupt Tesla. I don't know, bro. I don't really feel like it's any separation there at the top, man, when it comes to BlackRock and Elon and State Street, Vanguard, Citadel, all of them. It's kind of all the same. But yeah, man, if you guys got any input, anything you want to say, I'll be checking in throughout. My phone's on charge, so we should be good. Hopefully I don't lose this live, so you guys might as well screen record it if you got space on your phone, and then maybe, you could send it to me after or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with this, because like I said, the last time I did a live, it just was lost into the void. I don't know. It didn't get saved like it's supposed to. They wouldn't let me post it. And it wasn't even an edgy live. I felt like it was really direct and really helpful. And so I might do the next live on someone else's Instagram or on the other person's Instagram, the guest Instagram, in order to make sure it gets saved, because I don't know if it's just my account or what, but I've been going through it, obviously, with the censorship for a long time. I got debanked in 2011. 2012, around the Coney 2012 thing, I was throttled. My YouTube channel got throttled, and so pretty much from that point on, it's just been an uphill battle trying to, communicate online and connect with the people that want to receive and connect back. You know what I mean? Reach out. So, especially since 2020, I got Instagram deleted. I got further throttled. I got strikes all over. It was bad, but I guess it's just the way things are supposed to be. To keep it organic, I guess it's just the way it's supposed to be. And yeah, so lost a lot, but I guess gained a lot in some respects as far as authenticity and integrity. So it all worked out. Now my Instagram is frozen at around 5,500. It doesn't matter. I never get out of that bubble. So it is what it is. Might as well just connect as clearly and sufficiently as possible, so that the people that can receive me, they can, process that, distribute it as they will, and maybe others will, and then it'll reach you as supposed to. The same way that the things that I've come upon and the people I've connected with in my process, there was nothing that was ever going to stop that. Maybe some things might have slowed it down, but where there's a will, there's a way, as they say. So, or the will is the way. There's a lot of things I want to talk about. I definitely want to end with sonoluminescence, because it's such a loaded topic, and it's something that I feel like maybe they'll cut me off. Maybe my live will get cut. So I want to start on some of these earlier things, and then at the end of the live, I'll go into sonoluminescence, and I guess just the whole process of communicating that. And many people know, I guess, about sonoluminescence. I feel like it's almost like a book report I haven't finished, because it's something I need to communicate, but it's like I haven't found the correct words exactly for it, and I'd like it to be done correctly as far as really delivering the reality of sonoluminescence and the nature of the reality that we live in, the universe that we live in, what have you, this matrix or whatever you want to call it. So I would like to end with that, and just in case, because I think that's going to run long. I think the first part of this live will be about 45 minutes to an hour. I can run through a lot of points that I was going over in my Facebook and expand on them in my recent posts, and then probably another hour and a half just alone on sonoluminescence. So we'll just see what Instagram even lets me do as far as the live is concerned. So time's been going faster since they made the God particle. I mean, bro, time is the fourth dimension. So you have width, length, and depth. That makes the 3D. Time is the fourth dimension. It's just the fourth dimension. It doesn't go faster or slower. It's just a dimension to reality. So yeah. All right, so let's go into it. Man, bunch of little notes here. I just wanted to talk about, I guess, the thing that, I guess that's been plaguing me a lot throughout my life, in general, is just just guilt in general. I feel like maybe it was something that happened out of just my coming into being was laced with guilt because of the violations that had to happen in order for me to happen. And so I had to share in that. And then it just kind of got perpetuated and kind of just like transformed into different things as I grew. It just translated into, childhood guilt, then adolescent guilt, you know, and then adult guilt and different, but it's the same like root, I guess, ultimately. And like I was saying, like guilt is feeling like I feel to deserve the way I'm feeling because I ignored how I was feeling to begin with. Like, and I don't mean it like an sensual feeling. I mean like just the intuition and the instinct, the reception that was there um, within me of myself. You know what I mean? Like the way I was receiving myself was, um, at a younger age, there's a lot more clarity, but the communication systems weren't there. And then, there's not, there was not much of a buffer system to allow me, that gave me much time to develop the communication systems before traumas would unfold and perpetuate the guilt. So like, you know, ultimately, like, I just feel like I was just trained to be guilty for existing because I guess the people that partook in creating me felt guilty for bringing me about and bringing me to existence. So like, uh, and then I guess I had to look at it like for me to opportunistically jump into the portal to come into the shit under these means, I had to partake in the guilt. So, um, I feel like it's like guilt is more so like home. Guilt feels like it's like a deep loyalty I have to guilt, and I think that's just I guess maybe what comes with addiction and coming from an addict and people with addict behaviors. Because I feel like all addiction is just shame. Because for whatever reason you were proud or whatever, and or naive, and then it brought about some type of shame. So then you attack yourself, distract yourself, and then that's that just creates more guilt. And again, like it's like the whole process of getting out of or cleansing oneself of the guilt is like it's not like you can fight fire with fire. It's not like being more guilty is gonna make you feel less guilty. It's like it's not like it's just gonna perpetuate it. And so I just treated guilt like reps. Like I was committed to feeling guilty, as if that would prevent guilt. And I think that's what all addiction is. It's like somebody saying like, well, I deserve this. I deserve to feel this way. So I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna smoke. I'm gonna have this bad food combination. I'm gonna eat too late. I'm gonna eat too early. I'm gonna, you know, sleep this way or have sex with this person this way, and I'm gonna settle for these different pleasures. And that's ultimately a commitment to feeling guilty and perpetuating the guilt. And it's like somehow I don't know how that even comes into. It's like people trying to cure racism with racism, I guess you could say, or cure hate with hate. It's like it's not gonna happen. So it's like it has to be virtue. It has to be just will and acceptance of responsibility more than like lamentation. I think that at some level, you gotta acknowledge what you're processing, and be like, okay, I feel guilty for X, Y, and Z, and then it's just like how every disease has a herb that matches it. It's like every mental and emotional disease, because anger is a disease, anxiety is a disease, depression is a disease. There's virtues that coincide or counter these diseases. Just like you have herbs that match certain organs that help you cleanse for certain diseases or certain ailments. It's like certain acts of virtue or implementations or applications of virtue I don't like to say the word remedy because it's repetition. It's like remedial. It's like repeating. It's like it cures. It cures. Like the virtue would cure the actual the guilt or the pride or the shame. They all lead into guilt. So I feel like the guilt will never end. Committing to the guilt. So I would like, whether it be smoking or drinking or fucking or just denying myself opportunities or um, just affirming things constantly and using guilt, the guilt recall, because that's all I had. That was home, and I feel homeless without it. I feel like I don't really have nowhere to go. Guilt was the crib, so I feel um, like it's just like nostalgia in a way. It's like it's home. It was the only place I knew. And it's like I don't want to abandon. I have a loyalty, I guess, to home in that way. It was the only home I knew, and it was dysfunctional, but it was the only home I knew. So I just feel like I just been loyal to guilt my whole life, and it just showed itself in different ways. And I didn't know how to communicate it to myself. And so then like I was thinking certain things and feeling certain things, and then I distracted myself. I attacked myself, and that just caused me to forget what I was thinking and feeling. It never made the thoughts or the feelings go away. I just couldn't hear them no more. But they're there. It's like being smell blind or something, or like when music is on so much it becomes background noise. You can go to sleep in it. It's like the same thing. Like the thoughts and the feelings is where my consciousness or my will was. The things that I had to address and acknowledge, that was there. That's where my presence actually was. And no matter what actions I took that were arbitrary actions that were just distraction and comfort cycles and stuff like that, that would just make me forget about those thoughts and those feelings. So then I eventually forgot myself because myself never moved past those thoughts and feelings. Myself was there. Like I had to pick up where I left off. It's just like if you playing Grand Theft Auto and you completing the missions, and then you save at one point, and then you just no longer complete missions no more, and you just go off and like go on the crime sprees or whatever. Like that is pretty much what's happening. It's like I'm distracting myself from the mission, but the mission is where myself is actually at, and my body is like disjointed from the mission at that point. So then like I no longer hear myself no more. I'm like kind of like out of Wi-Fi range at that point. And as I got in touch with the breath, sports helped me stay in a decent touch with my breath, in an unconscious way. And then changing my lifestyle as far as what I put in my body, that allowed my cells to breathe better. So that brought me to actual conscious breathing. And then that brought me to like technique to facilitate like the breath, the experience of the breath, in the best way possible. So through that process, that like brought me back into the Wi-Fi signal. And then that brought me back to these thoughts and these feelings that were unaddressed and unacknowledged for however long. And that brought me back to myself, because that's where myself was. It was like, it's like if you leave a friend somewhere, and you just know that they don't have a ride, they ain't gonna go nowhere. Like you just left them, you abandoned them, and they're like, I've been stuck here at the gas station, or whatever, since you left me. And I just like left myself. Like I drove off, left myself. And I remember like specific points or junctures where I was just like kind of disjointed from myself, where my body, I knew better than where the direction of my body was going. and I just wasn't in touch with my breath enough. The communication systems wasn't established, and I hadn't gotten in touch with my will enough to, you know, um, e- expand that connection with my will. So it was just, at that point, then I'm just moving from off of sensuality, what I see, hear, feel, think. I'm not really moving from actual will and awareness. I'm moving from stimulation or lack thereof. So I remember but I mean, like, the self is like always connected or tethered or whatever. It's always there, whether it's buried or however you want to look at it. Um, it's like background noise at that point. So like it's always there. It's like you're never off the path as much as you try to go off or try to get away from yourself. It's like no matter where you go, there you are, right? So like I I knew what I was doing was wrong at these points, but then I just committed to distraction and guilt even further. And that allowed me to forget those thoughts and feelings and suppress them. And then I was able to forget myself. And then at that point, I was just completely rogue. And it would surface at different times, like different concentrated times where I would get, really away from my nature and away from, true virtue. And I would allow my body to do things, and I would allow things in my environment to happen that I could have applied my will to transform the way that the outcomes would play out. And then I didn't. So then, like, it would just cause another guilt trip. And I feel like that's the same, like all substance abuse is a guilt trip and an ego trip. And that's why I say, like, psychedelics are ego trip and ego death at the same time. That's kind of why they're dangerous, because it feels like, you're advancing, but at the same time, it's an ego trip if you're like repeatedly doing it. And then weed is just a, subtle psychedelic. And all of this shit is kind of a hallucinogen. Alcohol is basically like a hallucinogen, because you become delusional. And I feel like, and sensual. So, I would go down, I would have, it would create like, it's like lighting a fuse, and then eventually it would blow up at some point in my life. And then that would just create like a flashpoint in trauma that would create more guilt. So then I would, I would lament further. It's like, how can I get out of this guilt? It's like, oh, I feel more guilty now. Now I should attack myself more and distract myself more, and then it suppressed. It just compresses and compresses and compresses. And then it's just like, it's like nuclear fusion. And then it's a nuclear bomb. And then you have this, explosion or exhaustion of energy, like a flashpoint due to some trauma, or allowing trauma to unfold to someone that you care about or something that you care about around you. And then the guilt starts to arise from the initial point, and you're able to start to feel it at that point. And then you have a choice whether to go into deeper distraction, harder drugs, more casual sex, or, just further disjoining from your will through, whatever it is, taking a job in a place where you shouldn't be. All that kind of stuff is like just a doubling down on the distraction, which is suicide. Ultimately, distraction is suicide. You know what I mean? Because distraction is vanity, and it's just big suicide energy. Like, a distraction is an attack on the consciousness, because all war is deception. And you got to look at, like, chronic distraction is dementia. You know what I mean? And it's funny, the root of dementia is the same as demon. So they have a similar literary cognate, the roots of those words. So like you commit to an illusion, a program of some sort, just a demon, and that distraction eventually it perpetuates itself and becomes total dementia. Um, so one way or another, whatever you're doing is causing dementia. Whatever distraction it is, whatever you're doing that you know you shouldn't be doing, or things that you suppress and don't acknowledge that hold you back, but they might seem minute. All the small things, create all the big things, and that's the difference between the narrow path and, um, the, I guess you could say, just the distraction path. Because the narrow path, when you're not yourself, it seems narrow, but you go into it. It's the Tao. It's like, it's the way. It's the most direct way. It is the way, but you have to let go of attachments. You can't carry that. You can't carry the false you on that path. So then, the guilt can't come with you. Those things cannot come with you because they're not in alignment with your likeness. So the only way to dissolve that or resolve that is through virtue and working and unworking the inertia in your system, the vacancy in your system. And the breath is a starting point. And, because the breath is essentially kind of like the shadow of consciousness, and through the breath, you experience consciousness. Without the breath, there is no consciousness. There's only unconsciousness. So, it is the path through, it's the path. It brings you to the apparent action that you need to take, but it doesn't make you take the action. It just makes it more obvious, and you still have to make the decision. You still have to apply your will, you know what I mean? But a lot of people, we find ways to do the wrong. We find ways. It's like we get better to get worse, like you detox so that you can retox, or you learn a bunch of new stuff so you can do all the wrong things a better way, or whatever it is, what I mean? Like, I can cheat the system better now. It's like you learning metaphysical things or knowledge of self or whatever, and you're using that to abuse the physical, but you're only abusing yourself. There's no way to really do the wrong thing the right way, you know what I mean, or the correct way, what have you. So all the distraction is the way. First of all, like, you never really gain a calmness if you stay in distraction. There's never really any calmness. So you're always moving from static. You're never really moving from actual signal or will. So then you just become like really easily triggered. And then it's like, as you get older, you get colder. And then it's more easy to succumb to distraction and sensual pleasure because you're losing the fire. You're losing the light. You're losing your awareness of the source, your source. So like, getting old is getting cold, and most people, what they call getting old is just withering. It's not the same thing. Aging isn't the same thing as withering. And it's like, wilting isn't the same thing as, like, a plant wilting is you just not giving it the sun and the water it needs, but when the plant is actually going through its transition of, dropping a seed and then turning into fertilizer for that seed, that's not the same thing. That whole process is not the same thing as wilting. Wilting is a stunting of growth. And, the other thing is actually just the transitory process, of creation and self-realization through that creation. So, I'd say getting old is getting cold. And like, really, like, I feel like I experienced that more as as you play sports or do anything as you get older, I feel like, when you're younger, especially, if you're melanated, the more melanated you are, the more warmth that you have. So like, it's easier for your circulation to stay at optimum levels because you have a lot more light inside you that's creating pressure and increasing the circulation. Sebi would say you have more carbon or whatever, or modern science would say you have the more quick twitch muscles or more dense muscle mass. You know what I mean? Because of the tissue having more melanin in it, what have you. It's just more light, so it's just more heat, and so then the circulation is better, and so you just have a greater shelf life. Or potentially, depends on how you take care of it. It's like a Ferrari. If you got a Ferrari and you don't take care of it, it's gonna break down quicker than a Honda. You can probably rock a Honda and just not even get oil changed for like 15,000 miles. That bitch will still rock out. You try to play that shit with with a Ferrari or a Bugatti, there's gonna be problems, man. Quickly, you're gonna have issues if you don't have good maintenance on a vehicle of that sort. So it's still a relative challenge. It's not any easier for anybody, but I think in sports you can see like there's no white LeBrons. Don't exist. You know what I mean? Like there's no white Michael Vicks. There's no white dude that's going to jail for 3 years, federal prison for 3 years, and coming out and be comeback player of the year and be in contention for the MVP, and be a play away from getting to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like that dude does not exist in the pale world. It does not exist. That, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, it's relative, like the white dude, like Larry Birds of the world, the pale dudes of the world, they can't stop. They can't stop working out and training. They can't let their foot off the pedal at all because they become obsolete so much faster. They become colder faster. And, the melanated person just has the challenge of like, oh, I can just do this longer. I'm more talented. I have more gifts, and they can fuck off. And then they end up blowing it all because they feel like they can be lax. And then, they can be easily obsolete through just replacement by another melanated person. So that's what happens. And so it's not like it's any easier, but, it's relative. So through playing sports, you see whatever it is you do actively with your body. When you're younger, you're not even really sweating like that. You're not really even getting so hot so fast to where you sweat like that as a youth. Your homeostasis was way more easily maintained because you haven't deviated as far. But as you get older and you've peaked out with your testosterone or whatever, and now you've reached a point where you get warm, and then if you was to stop playing, then you cool down a lot faster and you need to warm up again, and life don't wait for you to warm up again. You know what I mean? It's not going to wait for you. So you have to keep the circulation correct to where you can get warmer quickly in order to stay competitive, just to keep from falling into obsolescence. So like when you look at that, and it translates into everything. It's not just sports. It translates into anything. Cognitive function, circulation is critical for anything. So it's not just sports. It's just, I feel like, a more apparent when you look at it that way, in a rudimentary way. You look at it like in the body and X's and O's and matter of fact ways like that. So like you look at it like a person warms up before the game. They play the game for 2 quarters or a half, and then they cool down at halftime, and then they come out and they have to warm up again for the 3rd quarter, the 4th quarter, the rest of the game. And as you get older, you realize like, it's taking me longer to get warmer, and I'm not staying warm as long. Like when you're young, you could stop, you could play a game of basketball, be on the sideline waiting to play again, and just go right into playing, and it won't be so bad on you. You know what I mean? Some people would eat horribly though, where they could suffer injuries, and, experience problems still even in their youth, especially now as the template keeps breaking down of the species. But as you get older, you're just getting colder and colder, and the whole process of warming up becomes more uncomfortable. The whole process of getting your heat up to where your circulation is complete throughout your tissue, to where you can you can use your body at optimum levels, at the highest levels, to compete, whether it's with yourself or with others. You see, like, it becomes more uncomfortable, especially if you're not taking care of your body. As you get older and you eating empty calories, or you eating a lot of carbs, and then you try to get up and run that same 6 miles or whatever it was, or play sports or whatever you do, jump rope or gymnastics, and you trying to do that shit after eating these things and drinking these fluids that are not, that are only robbing your system and not supporting you, then you see, like, man, my body's, people say I'm getting older. I can't compete at these same levels. And it becomes more uncomfortable to warm up. So then most people eventually, they stop working out, or they work out less, or they just, they never really get to a drenched sweat. I see people in the gym all the time. They work out to a certain point, they stop. They don't superset nothing. They don't get sweaty. They don't reach that point where they just be drenched. They're not getting to that point to where they have a voluntary fever, basically, to burn off toxins, to exercise demons, mentally, emotionally, to release that. They're not reaching that state of heat. And then as you get older, you don't have the stamina to maintain that state of heat for long durations. So then, then you reach a point where you might actually have symptoms of sickness from your toxicity threshold. You reach a threshold where your body's like, all right, now we have to go into an involuntary fever. We have to have a fever, just spontaneously, in a sense where it's like, all right, we don't have a choice. We could have done breath work and had like minute fevers every day, a little bit through that process. And like, cause respiration is 75% of detox. So the breath is the best way to detox. Nothing is detoxing you better than the breath. 75% of detox is the breath. The rest is urination, feces, and sweat. Sweat is a small amount, actually, but the heating up is what causes the movement of the lymphatic system, so that you can decompress and recompress areas that need to tighten back up, and then purge yourself of whatever toxins that are in your lymphatic system, in your mucous membrane. So the heat just helps facilitate that. So, and if you're working out, obviously, the more that your heart rate goes up from the movement, the more that your breath is going to have to match that. You're breathing more breaths per minute to circulate blood into your external tissue, because the core temperature has increased so much from the movement that you don't need to have so much blood in this area. You're moving blood more into the external tissue because you have good circulation at the core at this point. It's like you're getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and now it's like the external parts of you become more and more hot and more and more hot. And then you're breathing more breaths per minute to cool down, to counter the heat that you're exhausting. So as you age, or as you destroy yourself, as you wilt, or wither, whatever, as that happens, then you're going to go into involuntary fevers because you didn't voluntarily maintain homeostasis through breath work, fasting, intermittent fasting, just detox with herbs and foods that aren't inflammatory, and H3O. And when that happens, then you're going to reach a toxic threshold, and then you go into an involuntary fever rather. And when that happens, it's miserable because it's just like if you ain't been working out and then you go to work out, the first 10 or 15 minutes are going to fucking suck because you're warming up. So you go into involuntary fever. Working out is a voluntary fever. So then you go into an involuntary fever and it's just miserable. You're going through your detox symptoms all at once. Whereas like if you were doing breath work and working out, playing, having activity, then you're going to get like, more minute detox symptoms and like flash points throughout the workout. You might have to spit. You might just have discomfort at different points. You might have like cramping in your colon, or, your back might feel tight in the beginning. Your knees might not have blood in them like they should because of what you're eating and you're not moving around right. But after like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, your body, the circulation is there and you're starting to move now and the circulation is fine and you're getting over that hump. And you've gone through that process now of committing to, regulating your own homeostasis instead of just letting the body have to just fend for itself. So then when you're going into an involuntary fever like that, it's just like working out. It's just like working out after not having worked out for a long time. So now your body's heating up and you just get this discomfort, the emotions that come with the burn off of the toxins, because you're eating the toxins to suppress the emotions. So when you burn off the toxins through the fever, involuntary or voluntary, those emotions are going to surface. And so people get sick. They go through the process of having to face their emotions in an involuntary way. And you're either going to acknowledge your emotions through the breath and detox and through abstaining from temptations, emotions will rise and then you control it, you breathe and then you acknowledge it and you live above them, and then they don't lead you anymore. Then you process them. So, but if you don't, then your those toxic emotions, which are disease, really, metaphysical disease, anger, anxiety, depression, that's all disease. So that's all going to lead you to a toxicity level to where you have to face those emotions either way. So you're going to consciously do it through breath work, fasting, yada, yada, yada. Or the toxic emotions, you're going to unconsciously do it. You reach a toxic threshold. Now you have a healing crisis where you're going to go through involuntary fevers and you're going to exhibit symptoms that are, discomfort or pain, sweats, lack of temperature control. And then if you couple that with someone telling you that you can't naturally heal, like a doctor or somebody like that, then if you commit to that ideology, then that disjoints you from your will even more. So it's just going to bring you into a deeper sickness to try to bring you to that, bring you to a state of realization. You know what I mean? The sickness is actually helping you. It's trying to disarm you from being able to continue to hurt and distract yourself. It's like bringing you to the point where you're like, I got to accept my emotion. I got to accept what brought me to this state. But people treat the symptoms and suppress it even further. And then they get further away from themselves. And then they don't hear the signals no more. And then they're just going further off the cliff, like going down a road that's going to take them off the cliff. Even though the signals and alarms are going off, they just don't hear them no more. So, as you lose this ability and the stamina, because you're getting older and your involuntary fevers, they don't have the stamina no more to really do the job, to burn off the toxins and to really bring you back to health. So it's like if your health is here and then it dips through toxicity, then the fever might bring you back up a little bit, but never all the way back up to here. And then as you deteriorate like that, and you have like a downward sine wave like that, then you just develop chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic distraction, and then eventually leads to dementia. And then you get separated from yourself, your physical self, your body, and your metaphysical self become separated. And that's what we call death. Um, so yeah, um, yeah, and ultimately, I guess it just comes down to like the gratitude, guilt axis or balance, if you could even say it's a balance. Like, uh, judgment is necessary. Um, you need to acknowledge where you are incorrect. Committing to guilt and expanding guilt does not um, restore the balance. So like it doesn't bring about better judgment. It only makes your judgment worse as you commit to guilt more and more. So like it's like you have the opportunity to be grateful for the opportunities that you have and the people that you met and whatnot, or you have the opportunity to be sad that you stifled the opportunities or missed the opportunities, or that the person walked out of your life, or that you walked out of their life. You had that, you kind of have the opportunity to do either one. So, I mean, you're going to have, if you're gifted, you're going to have gifts are challenges and challenges are gifts. So you're going to be gifted with great connections that if you let them go to spoil because of your lack of gratitude, then you suffer more immensely than you would. So, but you'd rather have the responsibility of caretaking a connection to yourself and to others than not having the responsibility bestowed to you. So the gift is a challenge and the challenge is a gift. You know what I mean? And ultimately, I guess it just comes down to really like lust. Like lust is rage against the natural course of creation and the natural order of things. There is no separation, but there is a lack of acknowledgement of order. And then when that happens, then you're basically like practicing. Order is brings about creation. Creation brings about order. Fragmentation brings about death and destruction. Lack of order. Lack of order brings about death, destruction, and fragmentation. So, um, the more gentle you can be with yourself, um, the more that you're going to go towards a more creative drive. The more harsh you are with yourself, then the more you're going to a destructive drive. So like you can't get ahead of yourself. That's how you got separated anyway, living in the future or the past, getting behind yourself, getting ahead of yourself. All of that stuff is eventually what causes the guilt and not being present. So you have to take the small battles or whatever you want to call it, small victories, however you want to look at it, but the small changes all. So like this is going to start as something gentle or something that seems obscure or too small to matter. And then you just build from there. One brick at a time builds a Coliseum or whatever. So like, it's like, why would you practice improper creation or improper order? It's the same thing like I was saying the other day. Like, why would you get a woman pregnant from a position that's not face to face? It wouldn't make sense. It would be not sane. It would be unsanitary. It would be not sane, ultimately, because I mean, metaphysically, it's not sanitary. It might be physically sanitary to some degree, but metaphysically, it's not sanitary. So, like, why would you ever engage in the things that are improper creation? So you gotta look at it like you're practicing for heaven or reality or whatever, however you want to look at it. You're practicing for oneness or total self-realization. So all the things that are in the likeness of that are what you need to be implementing or realizing within yourself and bringing into the world. So like anything that doesn't reflect that is just practice for fragmentation and destruction. So like when it comes to your approach to sex is your approach to life. So like, because ultimately that's what's bringing about the physical life. So like your relationship with yourself is going to reflect in your relationship with your approach to sex or whatever. So like if you're approaching creation improperly, then you're practicing the wrong thing. It's like if somebody was practicing how to play soccer with their hands or how to play basketball with their feet. It's just might get good at that shit. You could probably get good at it. You could start your own game, but it will not be the actual mission. It will not be the actual objective or game that, rather, whatever you want to call it. That's not the actual thing that you're supposed to be doing. You could get good at the wrong thing. Plenty of people get good at it. You know what I mean? Anybody that's think about somebody that's in porn. They could be good at porn, but it's the wrong thing. You know, you could be good at, drug dealing or whatever that gets you money in ways that cause destruction. All of that shit. You could be good at that, but it's not the correct thing for your growth or, for the maintenance of your sanity. So, why would you ever practice it? It's not bringing you to yourself. And it's like the further you go inside yourself, the further you reach inside yourself, like the deeper you become. Like paradoxically, it's like you go further in, the deeper you are. And the less idea you have of yourself, like the less attachments and concepts that you live in, the more you shed that, the more that the narrow path appears vast because you're shrinking your idea of yourself. So now the path is, you're seeing it for what it really is instead of seeing it for what it should be in your mind based on your lack of self-awareness. So like people that go against the natural order of things, it's a rage, it's a pride, it's a vanity that creates the separation within, you know what I mean? Because it's just, that's what lust is. That's what vanity is. It's like there's this natural order of things. I want to bypass it some way to get something that I think I want. And then and life will let you do that. And that's to destroy you. Because now yourself is now like folding in on itself. It's now in a position where it's like, I have to destroy myself to protect myself from myself. Like paradoxically, because it's a lie. And as soon as your awareness knows that, the body or whatever is now being driven by a lie, it's like, now I have to destroy this body. I have to, so that I can, turn it back into ash and restart. So like, I think it's, just it's a rage, man. It's a rage that I feel like is difficult. Even though I've tempered the desire throughout my life, I can still feel it. I still feel like I'm immersed in, I feel like a society that has sanctioned that kind of rage to where people just fuck and drink and smoke and listen to dumb shit and fucking, it's like especially musically listening to dumb shit, like, and ignore their breath. All of this stuff is rooted in rage. You know what I mean? Because the pride just going to eventually turn into that. The pride exhausts your energy. So then in that process of exhaustion, you experience lack, which creates desire. And then it eventually turns into like a burning rage or a burning lust, a passion. And so, to follow that and take you further away from the natural order of creation, take you further away from yourself. And it take you further away from the people that would have reflected your true self or helped you bring your, that would have gently helped you build each other up gently into, realizing yourself more and more, and it's like I was saying, it's like 3 deaths. You lose who you thought you were, you lose the person, and you lose the us, who y'all were together. You know what I mean? It's like, that's inevitable in the process. You know what I mean? One way or another, experiencing people, you experience them, you have to let them go. So one way or another, you have to let go of who you thought you were. You have to let go of them, and you have to let go of us, you know what I mean, in some respect, because it is what it is. Those are like the deaths that happen through death and through the death or a fallout of a relationship or a friendship, what have you. And like the more you get, the more that you're going to have to be comfortable of getting rid of or losing, letting go of, you know what I mean? Because paradoxically, letting go is acceptance. Pleasure is pleasing. And that's the whole process. It's the process of elimination. So, whether you call this whole life a fever dream and it's burning off the illusion and it's a process of elimination, one way or another, you're going to experience having things, having a body, having the things that you have, the people in your life, the objects you acquire, all of that stuff that you get, you have to, if you didn't come in with it, you're not gonna leave with it. So now you're being challenged if you have a lot of things to give those things away and get comfortable with not having them things while you're alive before you pass on, so that you don't cling to this world. So like the more you have, the more you have to get comfortable with letting go of it. You know what I mean? Sharing it, giving it away is not for you. Things are acquired to be shared or given away. So, I feel like we're just in a state now where it's like a collective Mandela effect, like a collective editing of self-expression to try to trick yourself into, desire, the happiness of pursuit, all of that. I feel like it's like the hosts are following the parasites and the parasites are following the host. It's the snake eating its own tail. Like the host should be the leader and everybody else should be following the host, because the host is supposed to be following the Tao, and since the host is not setting that standard, the parasite or the cleanup crew that's sweeping up behind it is now like following, like they're destroying themselves. So then the cleanup crew is just following that and expanding that. And then so it's like a constant snake eating its own tail phenomenon where it's causing everybody to edit their self-expression, and then people accept things that are not for them, and give things up that are not for who they gave them to. You know what I mean? And it's like a collective Mandela effect. And I feel like it causes people to forget themselves for pockets of their life, if not their whole life. Ultimately, they'll probably forget it all. So that's kind of what it is. Like most things are like out of this collective suicide. Because I feel like everything people are doing is because someone close to them is killing themselves. Like most things people do. Most things. Like I think everything in general is like caused by birth. People get like, they have a child and they say, well, I gotta support this child, I gotta do things. Or somebody dies and then they say like, oh, I gotta live for them. I can't let them die in vain. I gotta do this. I can't let my own life, I don't want to let it pass me by. Or they go into like sorrow and they go into self-destruction. It's like all the actions are like stemming from somebody ejaculating and somebody dying. You know what I mean? And I just feel like there's a collective suicide happening that's influencing everybody's daily activities, and so people around them are killing themselves subtly, with food, drink, alcohol, entheogens, mild psychedelics like cannabis. They're killing themselves with these distractions, and it's causing immense grief. It's just subtle over time. When you see somebody doing that, it fucks with you. And like, if you really care about them. And I feel like most people's drive is out of that, man. Whether it's a good drive or a bad drive, most people's drive is out of that. They're like, oh, I don't want to be that. I don't want to fall in alcoholism. I got to go into this, or whatever it is. It's like not that many examples of like of the nature of being. It's just like repulsion and attraction, which is kind of the same thing, two sides of the same coin. And yeah, man. So shit, I guess I'll get into this sonoluminescence in a second here. I really wanted to talk about the JFK thing for a second before I get into that, though, just in case this shit cuts off. Because I don't know how long it's been. It's 1:33 here now. I don't know how long we've been in here, but, you know, I feel like everybody's kind of right about a lot of the shit they say. You know, when it comes to right-wing media, right-wing alternative media, the left, they got a lot of good points, you know what I mean, about them. And then obviously the left is very blind to certain things. Obviously they are, you know, out here pretty blind to certain things, you know what I mean? But they have, you know, they make a lot of good points that I feel like the right just is blind to because they've been taught a fake history that creates a fake pride or fake integrity that creates pride. Pride is just fake integrity. So then, like, it creates like an automatic response. I feel like that makes them double down on certain things that are just not true. So, but that being said, I still feel like Nick Fuentes and Stu Peters, Josh Segerson, Alex Jones, they say a lot of things that are correct, even though they are white supremacists. You know, ultimately, I think anybody that feels like Western exceptionalism is a thing, or like colonialism was good, or that America was just open season for whoever to take over, and whoever was the last man standing is who deserves the place. That's pretty much, you know, I feel like the white supremacist view, even though it's a misnomer to call them white, they like pink supremacists. But I feel like, you know, you can get a lot of good things as far as like actual current events from them. So like when it comes to the JFK assassination, my dad was big on JFK, and I feel like he got into the conspiracy of JFK because it happened when he was like 10. So I feel like he got into it real young. It's like the same thing with me. Like 9/11 happened when I was 11. You know what I mean? So like, you know, it hit, you know, when that shit hit, you know, Loose Change came out. You know, Jadakiss came out with Why, and it was like, why did Bush knock down them towers? Like all of this shit that was happening at the time, it was like, yo, this is not right. What they're saying is not true. The war in Iraq is BS. Going into Afghanistan is BS. I'm seeing what it's doing to my friends that went into these war zones. And it's the same thing. My dad, you know, JFK gets killed, then Vietnam explodes. It's the same shit, kind of. It's like relative to the generation. And so, like, I knew a lot about JFK because I would look into the shit, you know, obviously, you know, Oliver Stone had a pretty dope movie about it with Kevin Costner or whatever, but I learned a lot about it because I would go into it. And at the time when YouTube wasn't censored, there was this guy that would, you know, he was a white dude. I forget his name. You know, I wasn't really thinking about saving videos then at the time. I was just like watching the shit, taking it in and being like, oh, word, that's what it is. Now I'm going to tell people. I wasn't thinking like, I need to save this. I wasn't thinking correctly. My brain wasn't working right. And I remember back then, it was like, I want to say like 06, 07 maybe. this guy, he made a bunch of YouTube videos about the Zionists behind the JFK assassination. It was a white dude. He was just in a studio with, with them lokes on, with them super black sunglasses on. And he was just talking about all the different Zionists involved in the JFK assassination. So like in 1999, my brother, his dad had died and he moved back in with us and we shared a room. And he was reading Behold a Pale Horse, which a lot of conspiracy people, they know the book. William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse. He's reading that book in like 98, 99. So we got bunk beds, he's smoking weed in there. We watching movies. He talking about this shit every night. You know what I mean? This other alternative thinking about how this group of people, the Illuminati, they run the world. William Cooper talks about aliens in the ocean and all of this type of stuff. But it wasn't until 2008 that I took that book. I took my brother's word for it, what he was saying, but I never really got into the details of it. So I ended up taking the book in 2008 when I moved to California to go to school. And I read the book for myself to really get like into the, details. And, YouTube wasn't around in 99. So William Cooper's talking about the Zapruder film in Behold a Pale Horse. And his whole thing was, if you watch the Zapruder film, you can see clearly that the driver turns around and shoots JFK. And so I'm not going to go that far, but I feel like, the pieces were there for me because, I was able to pull it up on YouTube and watch it. And I'm like, it kind of does look like the driver's shooting him, but I can't really be sure. It's kind of grainy footage. There's frames missing in the footage. There's frames missing throughout the whole thing when the motorcade is making that turn. And so I had already been acquainted with certain shit at this point. So like, I didn't know that the shit was called the Zapruder film. You know what I mean? Before, like it was, I watched that dude in like 06, 07. He's talking about the dude that kills JFK's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, is murdered on camera. And I think it's the first time on national television somebody was killed on camera. In 1963, November 1963, 2 days after JFK is killed, right? Because JFK, no one saw the footage of him being killed until 8 years later in 1971. Imagine if 9/11 happened and no one saw the videos until 2009. So JFK gets killed, and no one saw that shit for 8 years. They just was told on the radio and it was on TV. They just was told that this guy's dead now, right? So 2 days later, they're moving Lee Harvey Oswald from the holding cell to the county jail. And in that process, a man named Jacob Rubenstein, also known as Jack Ruby, who was a Chicago member of the Jewish Mafia, he was cool with Oswald as well. He somehow is able to get access to Oswald and shoot him and kill him. And Oswald had already said that he was a patsy at this point. So Jack Rubenstein kills Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald is blamed for the assassination. And they just say it's a lone gunman. And the magic bullet theory that he shot JFK, shot the governor, and shot a Secret Service member, I think, as well, all with one bullet. He fired 3 shots, hit him once, and this shit went through his head, through his neck, into the governor, into another motherfucker. And they called it the magic bullet theory, and they ran with that for years until the Warren Commission, I think in 1973, came out. Oh, no, the House Assembly on Assassinations came out in 1973, and they had the recording from that day, the audio. They don't have the video. They had the audio of JFK's assassination. And in that recording, there's more than 3 shots. So that proved that there was at least, there's at least more than 3 shots. and they say, well, this means that there has to be another assassin, and it wasn't just Oswald, but that just gets swept under the rug because the Warren Commission, by the Supreme Court Justice Warren, he was saying like, oh, it's only one gunman, boom, sweep it under the rug. No one saw the fucking footage for 8 years. And finally, the Zapruder film surfaces. So like the dude in 06, 07 that I'm watching, his conspiracy theories or his conspiracy facts about JFK's assassination, he's just pointing out all the Zionist individuals that are involved in this assassination. So like, he obviously points out that Jack Ruby is Jack Rubenstein, and they just call him Jack Ruby in history. They don't call him Jack Rubenstein. Anytime the Jews do something that is not favorable, they change their name. But whenever it's favorable, they don't. They keep their name. They'll keep the Stein. They'll keep the whatever. They'll keep their name. And so, I have found out by 06, 07 that the dude Zapruder himself, the only footage of JFK getting killed, that dude is a Zionist. He is a tiny hat person. So the only footage of the assassination is a tiny hat person. And the guy that kills the only person that would know what went on that day, supposedly, was a Zionist. Right? And so it was so many more other Zionists involved in this situation. It's just, those are the two that I remember, because I'm doing other shit at the time. I was trying to go to NFL. So like, that shit stuck with me. And so it was like, all right, yeah, I already know the tiny hats are behind JFK. And I already knew from growing up in Jersey that the tiny hats and the Italians is tight. You know what I mean? I had the rundown. Meyer Lansky, Mickey Cohen. You get the rundown on the mafia, especially if you live in Jersey. You know what I mean? Like, and even though Mickey Cohen's like from the LA mob and Meyer Lansky, was from the Chicago mob, they all still work together. They all was still from La Cosa Nostra or La Kosher Nostra. So they were all, because they're all Canaanites. It's like they say the Romans and the Jews killed Jesus or whatever, but it's just Canaanites. Some just be like, all right, we Jewish. And some be like, oh, we Catholic or whatever. But they're all Canaanites for the most part. Like the people that we're talking about in these circumstances. Like you have a lot of Khazarians that are, because your Sephardics would be your Canaanites to date. The Sephardic Jew, the Sephardim, the Spanish Ladino Jews, the Latin Jews would be Canaanites. They're Canaanites. Because they're Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are Canaan. They're Canaanites. So like, if you look at Phoenicia, they were all over the Mediterranean, but specifically in the Levant and in Spain and Italy, and that they're Canaanites. And so that's why you have that merger of the Romans and Jews, like throughout history, because it's not about the religion. Ultimately, it's a bloodline. It's a Canaanite bloodline. They're Hamites. Because Canaan is a son of Ham. And this is why it's all scripted, you know what I mean? And so, you looking at the shit, and I feel like Nick Fuentes communicated it well, as far as like, I can give you like the boil down of it. Is like, but I just knew it through the confirmation. Like the Italians ran the docks. They still do. The Italians run waste management. They still do. They run construction. They still do. And so like, when you control waste management and construction, then you know where the bodies go, because you can dump the bodies. You can put the bodies in the dump itself, because you control waste management, or you can bury the bodies underneath the fucking shopping mall, because you control construction. So like, they know where the bodies are buried. and they work together. And it's all one mafia. They're not separate. The CIA, the Jewish mafia, and the Italian mob are all the same because the CIA was contracted the Italian mob to control the docks. You know, because there was an explosion in New Jersey at a weapons depot, and so they were like, all right, from this point on, we're gonna get we'll contract the Italians to control the docks. And so obviously you got your Cohens or your priest class, your witches in a sense, and then you have like your warlocks, which is like the Italians. And so like you have like different arms of the shit. They're all still part of the same bloodline, and they work in different parts of it. Some is lawyers, some is just paper pushers, some are just they're actually blowing dudes' brains out and shit like that, and they control, and they are not separate from the government. They're part of it. They're one arm of it. And so you had a man named James Angleton, who was because when JFK was in there, he had got rid of the head of the CIA before he had died. So he had an ally at the head of the CIA. But you had guys like James Angleton, who, because after the Bay of Pigs happened, he got rid of the CIA director and put his own guy in there. So like, because the reason that the Bay of Pigs happened, right, was because they wanted to take over Cuba, so that because the Italians wanted to have casinos in Cuba. They wanted to expand the casino situation in Cuba, and they wanted to get a regime change to get Castro out of there so that they can operate freely, so that they could be their mob, you know what I mean, and have that, 90 miles off the coast of America. And so since JFK's dad was a bootlegger that worked with the mafia, and the mafia rigged the election for JFK to get into office in 1961 by rigging Chicago and Hawaii, they got him into office. And so he owed them favors. So he was like, all right, we'll do the Bay of Pigs. We'll invade Cuba. We'll get y'all set up with y'all casinos or whatever. And then that shit failed. So he gets rid of the CIA director and puts his own guy in there. And then there's a guy named James Angleton who was working for the CIA at the time. He was using the Jews that left Germany as a means to collect intelligence from East Germany and West Germany during the Cold War. And even he was doing it, even from the end of World War II, because after World War II is when the CIA is formed. Up until then, it was British intelligence, started the OSS, and it was, that was the point when the dollar became the world reserve currency, and the shit shifted from England being the world reserve currency to America being the world reserve currency and being the face of the empire. So in that process, they created the CIA, through the OSS, the British OSS. And the CIA had a man named James Angleton who was using Jews from Germany to get intelligence from Eastern Germany and everything. And, from even during the war and everything, they had been doing that. So he had like a racket of Jews that he would use for intelligence. And then they were using the mob to traffic guns from America and from Italy into Israel or Palestine at the time. Because, it was Palestine Mandate. It was owned by the British, and Israel didn't become a state till 1948. So they were smuggling guns from World War II into Israel, and they were using the mob to do it. And they were doing that to basically one hand wash the other. You get intelligence from the Jews, you support Israel, you get these guns into there, and then now you got, your whole racket. The CIA is basically them. You know what I mean? So then, you have this, you have a total alliance there with the, with the Jays and the Italians. So, because who you think defended them in court or got these deals done? Who was, part of, I mean, as far as the Teamsters, the lawyers that was with the Teamsters, who were all these people? You know what I mean? Like Bugsy Siegel. His name, I think, is Bugsy Siegel Stein. I think he's another Stein. I mean, he was a Jew. He was the head of the mafia that started the mob in Vegas. So then you got the guy Mickey Cohen, who was the mafia boss in L.A., and he was supporting Israel by bankrolling this gun smuggling campaign into Israel so that they could feed Israel to create a state and triple their land mass, because at the time they didn't have that much space, but they wanted to take the Suez Canal from Egypt, and they wanted to take more space from Jordan, the Golan Heights. They wanted, and at the time, Egypt was an ally. Syria was an ally of Egypt, and Syria were allies of the USSR. So Kennedy was like, I'm not about to help Israel in this fight against these satellites of the USSR. We're in this Cold War period with Russia or whatever. I'm not going to create a conflict with Egypt or Syria by supporting Israel. I'd rather just keep it fair. I'd rather deal with the Palestinians the same way I deal with the Israelis. I'm not going to put one over the other, because that would set off Russia, and then there'd be a chain of events where it would just mess with the whole trade situation in the world. Because the Egyptians had took the Suez Canal from the British and French in the 50s. So come the 60s, they're like, look, I don't want to upset the region. It'll fuck with the whole trade, the whole flow of trade in the region if we upset that shit. You know what I mean? So Kennedy the only thing that was keeping the region from destroying Israel, supposedly, was this fear of a nuclear weapon. And JFK was like, nah, I'm not going to give y'all a nuclear weapon. Y'all can't get that. I'm not about to give that shit to y'all. But then France, because France had they took over Lebanon after World War I, and they had the Lebanese mandate. They took over Lebanon, and they invaded Egypt, obviously. And so they had interest in the Suez Canal. And so France was like, all right, we'll give Israel this technology to develop a nuclear bomb, supposedly. And so JFK was like, nah, you need to have inspections. Y'all not supposed to get no nuclear bombs. You know what I mean? We don't want nobody in the world to have that but us. You know what I mean? Or just us and Russia. We don't want no new people to have that. So like, whether he knew nukes was fake or whatever, however you want to look at it, he didn't want them to supposedly have that shit. So he ended up pushing the line like the whole time. He was like, nah, you know what I mean? Y'all gonna have to switch prime ministers even. I don't even want to fuck with Ben Gurion. I'm not even gonna fuck with you. Like, so they switched prime ministers out. JFK ends up getting murdered. The French end up giving them a nuclear bomb, supposedly, and that keeps the Arab nations around them from invading. So in that process, that just allowed them to exist, because nobody wants to go in there, because they got the button. They go, all right, we can blow y'all up. We got nuclear warheads, and if you invade, we'll blow up Cairo, or we'll blow up Amman or something. We'll blow up wherever. Like, so they're like, fuck, we can't really invade. The propaganda's so thick. I don't know if they believed that nuclear bombs was real at that point, or they, whatever they thought. So they was like, all right, well, we can't invade. If that didn't happen, Israel gets wiped out, because besides them getting guns smuggled from the mob, they're heavily outnumbered by Egypt, Syria, Jordan, everybody around them. It does not fuck with them. And so them having this threat of a nuclear bomb allows them to parlay and stay open and become a state and grab more land and continue to expand. And so I feel like I just wanted to say that about JFK, because I feel like it's just insightful at some level, because you look at it like from that point on, Israel ends up growing into, because also JFK wanted Israel the council on the Council for Zionist Americans, they became AIPAC. So then they in the JFK was like, you have to register as a foreign agent, and you're not allowed to bankroll political movements in America without registering as a foreign agent, and that would restrict their ability to buy off elections in this country. So that all died with JFK. So once JFK died, they got the nuke. They were able to, change their name to AIPAC, and they were able to buy all the elections. And then with that also, you also had the Epstein type shit where they was doing the sexual blackmail and controlling the politicians that way. So then the Khazars took over America. They completely at that point. They completely took it at that point. So you have this like unholy alliance between the Yaphatites, the Khazars, and the Canaanites against and the other forms of Hamites too. The Mitzrayims, the Cushites that are in the Americas. You have this alliance that is there to destroy the Shemite and subdue them and keep them at a low level. Like Pharaoh was saying that they want to keep the Shemite population of Black America at 12%. Everybody else has to be diluted, hybrid, or non-Shemite if you're going to be melanated in America. So only 12% of the 44 million or whatever is Shemite, full Shemite. Everybody else is a hybrid or just a Hamite. They look like kinfolk, but they just skinfolk. They're not Shemites. They just melanated peoples that live in America. And so that's who's really tag teaming, America. And America is the head of this cell that is this world or this universe, rather, whatever. So that's the situation we living in. We haven't, like, Stu Peters came out with the documentary Occupied, and I think it's a dope. That documentary is on X, Occupied. It's on Rumble. It's called Occupied by Stu Peters, and I think it's dope. I think it's well done, and you can't post it nowhere, so you have to go find it. I think it's on BitChute too. It's on Rumble, BitChute. It's on X right now, but they took his blue check mark away, and I think it's well done. And it's an occupied government, and you have to ask yourself, would that have happened if JFK didn't get murdered? So who stands to gain? And I also reserve the judgment to say that maybe the whole shit was fake. I know some people would say that JFK faked his death. The shit never happened. They released the footage 8 years later with missing frames. They say it was a dummy in the car or whatever they say, and that he got facial reconstructive surgery and then he became Jimmy Carter. And then that means he would have died like a month ago at 100 years old. That's what they would, that's the extreme side of that conspiracy, the JFK conspiracy, is that he faked his death and became Jimmy Carter through facial reconstructive surgery. I don't know if I'm going that far, but I don't doubt that it's possible that it's all smoke and mirrors. JFK either amicably said, look, I know y'all want to take me out. It's time to change the guard. I don't want to go out like, I don't know, in disgrace. So if you just kill me, then I could go out like a hero. And then it's all fake. I wouldn't be surprised if the whole JFK assassination was fake. And that, because they got the footage of Jack Ruby when right before he goes to kill Lee Harvey Oswald. Everybody's standing there and it's like they got X's on the ground and they're all standing there like in position like a movie. Like, all right, we're going to bring Lee Harvey Oswald out and da-da-da-da. It's like scripted. And they're like, all right, we bring him out. And Jack Rubenstein comes up and shoots him. He dies. He didn't get shot in the head, So I don't know. I don't know how far that shit goes, but I wouldn't be surprised is all I'm saying. I wouldn't be surprised if it was all fake. I know JFK's relationship with his wife was fake. I mean, maybe he was hitting that and got her pregnant and stuff, but it was not. Like, she was fucking LBJ, the vice president, they was all doing drugs and drinking together. They were not um, morally well people. They were easily compromised people. So um, I don't know how much honesty will come from that source. So I would not be surprised if he faked his death. Especially in the '60s. At that time, you could, change your appearance and go live somewhere else. You know what I mean? They say supposedly Hitler moved to Argentina. If he just shaved a little stash off and go to Argentina. If somebody can do something like that, which I think is plausible, I don't see why JFK couldn't do it in the '60s. You know what I mean? And maybe he did get facial reconstructive surgery. I don't know if he became fucking Jimmy Carter, but I don't know. Maybe people have more evidence on that shit to make me go in that direction more, but I don't believe he's Jimmy Carter. I think it's very possible he faked his death, and that's why the whole Jack Rubenstein murdering of Lee Harvey Oswald is BS, and then the only guy that has the footage of JFK getting his top blown off is a Zionist. It seems like theater to me, but I don't know. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised. If it's just as simple as they say it is, and it's because he had beef with Israel, and Israel was the mob, and the mob was the real government, and he was trying to create NASA and make another government and like try to take shit back over with his brother, and then they both end up murdered. That sounds plausible too, but I'm not ruling it out that it was all fake. That's all I'm saying. But Sonoluminescence, man. I guess they let me rock out for a minute here. I wonder how long we got. So Sonoluminescence. Or Sonoluminescence, I'm going to say. Sono just meaning sound. Sound creating light. I wouldn't separate sound and light. They're the same thing. That's how you can do an ultrasound and get imagery from an ultrasound. Because sound is light. It's all vibration. They're not separate things. It's all heat. So I don't know how you can separate sound and light. Ultimately, it's just like different expressions of it. You could say like sound is like, or light. You could say one is the echo of the other, or whatever, however you want to say it. Like kind of like the breath is the echo of consciousness, or however you want to look at it. But I would say, right, so sonoluminescence is basically like, I know a lot of people have looked at those images of the stars with like, people take Nikon cameras or whatever, and they zoom into the stars and it just looks like a bubble, or they zoom into Jupiter or whatever, it just looks like a bubble in the sky. I think that's observable reality. And when you look into something like sonoluminescence, it's like, I mean, I'm always trying to relate this to the observable reality so it doesn't get so far out. I don't want people to go into places where they're like, I'm proving this shit with all types of crazy math. And you can do that. You can go down that road. But for the sake of time, I feel like it would make sense that, like, if you look at like the lattice theory, the quantum lattice theory, that there's like the whole like universe or existence is lined in melanin or lined in light. Everything's in this light. I don't know if you want to call it a membrane, but like a lattice, like a field that is just the lining of everything. And so like it's a light spectrum. So like you have this lining of like just pure light, and then you have like filtered expressions of the light itself. So, but the light itself is eternal. It doesn't really, it's not going any, it's just eternal. Like it's like pure light, and it creates this spectrum through these reductions in light. You get all these different, like infrared, you get all these different colors, the whole spectrum, the whole light spectrum. And so through this body that we have, you can observe the entire light spectrum through your heart eye, your first eye, your pineal, what have you, whatever you want to call it. You can see the entire light spectrum through that. But the eyes on your face, they only pick up a small portion of the light spectrum. So like, I think it's the same thing. Like when we're talking about sonoluminescence, we're talking about basically they were able to recreate a bubble. If a bubble's in a pressurized situation and it collapses on itself, it releases light, it releases photons. So that's they call it cavitation. They call it a cavity, because it's a bubble, but it's not empty, it's not a void. And space is not a vacuum, because a vacuum would be nothing. And there's no big or little nothing. So space is not a vacuum. And there's no void. So it's a gaseous pocket that is this bubble, once it collapses on it, implodes on itself, that releases photons. And so when that happens, that implosion is causing hydrofusion. If you know anything about the periodic table or elements in general, hydrogen is the number one element. It's the most abundant element in the universe. And you're mostly made up of hydrogen atoms, but since hydrogen is the lightest of all the atoms, it doesn't make up, I think it's only like 6% of your weight is hydrogen atoms, but most of your body is hydrogen atoms. It's just, there's so many of them, but they're so light that, if you have an iron atom, it's very heavy. You have a gold atom, it's very heavy. So it doesn't take as many gold atoms to make up the weight. So you have, most of your body's hydrogen atoms, but they're so light that it's a small portion of the actual weight of the body. And so the most of the environment is hydrogen. It's just, it's just not much. It's not making up the bulk of the weight. So like the body itself is like a cell. In this, what we live in, this world we live in, is like a cell. And cells they have a cell membrane, which is called cytoplasm, which is plasma. Plasma is ionized gas. So it's basically like a force field of gas that creates pressure. So you have intracellular fluid, which would be the oceans, the rivers, all the moisture inside the system of the world. That's intracellular fluid. And then you have your extracellular fluid. In Genesis 1:6-8, it says like God, separated the upper waters from the lower waters, right? So you have this intracellular fluid, and then you have your extracellular fluid, and they create a pressure. There's a pressure on them, and then you have this membrane, this cytoplasmic membrane, this plasma force field that basically is what the body is. And because the body is mostly hydrogen atoms, and ionized hydrogen is plasma. And when hydrogen collides with itself, ionized hydrogen collides with itself, it eventually creates helium. And in that process of helium creation, because again, there's no creation or reduction of energy. But like when you're creating helium, it's the same amount of mass, but part of the mass becomes pure light. Part of it becomes helium as the hydrogen reacts through collision. Part of it is what's produced is helium and light. It's not any more mass or energy being created, because the light is constant. The light that lines everything is constant. And it's the fabric, it's the foundation of reality. The light is just pure reality. It doesn't go nowhere. You are in a frame. A body is a frame, like a quantum frame. and the frame shifts. The light never shifts. The light is stationary. So like the lining of this lattice, the lattice lining of this existence is made up of pure light. And so then when the bubbles, which are stars, collapse, which is just the breath over and over and over and over again. Every time it collapses, that creates light, that the twinkle of the star, over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so it's no different than, they call it rarefaction, or the process of water becoming gas. Condensation is gas becoming water, right? So then you have vaporization, which is rarefaction, is the process of water becoming gas. So then, because there's a pressure, if you look at like the ocean and then the air, the sky above the ocean, there's an upward pressure coming from the gas. All the gas in the ocean wants to merge with its likeness with things that are like it, that are gaseous. And that's where you're getting these pockets, these cavities of bubbles. And then through that collapsing process, it releases light and heat, and it frees itself and becomes air or gas or sky, whatever you want to call it. And then you have a downward pressure that's coming from, so like the bubble has a downward pressure. That's why the bubble's just not instantly going to the top. There's a downward pressure from the fluid above the bubble that's pressure and keeping it down, while you have this upward pressure from the gas as this is trying to become one with the vapor, because it's just a cavity of vapor that's wanting to come into, merge into it, what's more in its likeness, and become part of the sky, or because it's in the same state at that point. So it's the same thing. And you have this outer membrane, the cytoplasm, this firmament, where there's the upper waters, and there's pressure on the outside, the extracellular pressure, extracellular fluid is creating a pressure where the bubbles, it's like a lattice there, where there's like a portal point where the light can come through, where the star, the light from the star, the bubble can come through. And then each star is a portal point, and the light isn't going anywhere. It's just that every time the breath is happening from these portal points, these soul or solar or star points, the breath is happening every time. That's as the bubble, because the bubbles are constantly flowing through. It's a constant bubble there. And then you have this light, this point in the lattice. Like if you look at the lattice theory, you have points in the lattice that are like axes in the lattice. And that's like a point of a star. And that's a portal. So then as the bubbles flow to this point, like a sink, like constantly coming and exploding through every breath, every time it's through its, everything's trying to go to what its likeness is. That's creating the light that we see from the star. And so it's like, if you look at it, like you come into a body to experience light, because if it's just pure light, there's no differentiation. You won't see any separation. There's no perceived separation to experience oneness through the separation. So like, you have this breath that's causing this constant collapse, that's releasing light, that the light is already there in the lattice, and it's just being made visible through this breath, the breath every time. And then so then you have this natural course of the stars every night, the cycling of the stars, and they call it wandering stars, which are the 7 planets or whatever, but they're all stars and they're all in motion. I mean, I was talking about this shit the other day, like with somebody. I was like, yo, If the Earth was a planet, wouldn't you think that astrologers at some point in time would have said, like, what's your Earth sign? You know what I mean? Like, you'd have a moon sign, sun sign, Venus sign, Jupiter sign. You got all these different signs. You got your Chiron or whatever, Chiron. You got all these different signs for these bodies, but you don't have an Earth sign? Wouldn't Earth be part of this? Wouldn't you have like a sign for where Earth was? Like if Earth is in this uh, heliocentric system, then the Earth would have to have been in a sign while you was born, and then that would have been like your sign when you was born or whatever. Like, but no one talks about an Earth sign because the Earth is stationary, and then the heavens spin and the wandering stars spin, and all of it is just portals and like other cells, just like you come into the body as a cell, you know, and you come into the world as a cell to experience light in its reduced expressions. Because if it's just pure light, it's just pure oneness, there's no separation, it's almost blinding. It's like, what can you even see? There's nothing to see at that point. It's like image without an image. That's what they say about the Taoists. Image without an image. That's what pure light would be like, you know, to be in. And so if you were to come into densification, then you're going to experience a certain cell that matches your, you know, whatever your state, your quantum state is. And so each star would be just another cell, another portal. And then that would mean that there has to be portals within the world. That the stars, I mean, besides humans themselves, humans are portals, or man is a portal, they're portals. So like people are portals. And then there's actually physical locations on this earth that are portals. It has to reflect. So like, I just feel like it's just something I feel like we're, you know, that I feel like people just, it's just another way of looking at it. I feel like I'll be able to write about it in a more detailed way to get the points across. But yeah, man. I mean, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm is selectively, that's what controls what goes in and out. And so that's selectively permeable to ions. So everything, there's more hydrogen ions in existence than anything. So there's just passing through of light through, you know what I mean? And that's the means of transmigration of consciousness. So yeah, I just wanted to get into that a little bit. And I feel like that's like, it's definitely the breath that's causing the twinkle, the collapsing of the bubble. Because you got to look at it too, like, because in sonoluminescence, they say that the ultrasound or the sonar wave comes into the bubble and that creates a resonance or a heat that makes the hydrogen molecule, hydrogen atoms collide and produce that light. Collapse the bubble, produce that light. So I would say that the breath is producing the sound, because talking is just loud breathing anyway. So like the breath, the will, the breath, what have you, creates the sound, which creates the light, and they're not really separate. Ultimately, it's just one, there's oneness there. Or the perception of all of that is oneness. The will is like pure light, and through breath, it realizes itself. And the breath can only really realize itself through a container. Like if you didn't have a nose and a mouth to feel the breath coming and going through, and lungs to feel it coming and going through, and the rising and falling of, you know, of your bubble, the expansion and contraction of your bubble, your diaphragm, then you would have no perception of breath. So it's like the breath is creating the sound, which creates the bubble, which creates the light through its implosion or collapse process. And through the implosion, that releases the heat, which heats up the area even more to make another bubble, to make so like the collapse or the implosion creates the expansion. And so the breath or the will is in the superposition, the light is in the superposition, while the bubble is in, it's like Schrodinger's cat. The cat isn't dead or alive if you never open the box, right? It's in a superposition. Until you open the box, you never know. So like the superposition is like the doorway. And so you go in or you go out, but the superposition is like neither in nor out. It's like both at the same time. It can be whatever. And that's like what the will is. It's like dreaming. Are you alive or are you dead? Are you alive when you're dreaming, or are you dead when you're dreaming? Or are you dead when you awake? Or are you so it's like, are you experiencing past lives and you're, dead when you're dreaming or what have you? So it's like this paradox, but the superposition is the natural state of the will. And so like through the bubble or through the body, through the diaphragm, through the breath that contains the breath, that's how you experience the reduction of light or the expression of the light, because the light is already there, but the light can't really see itself unless it like develops a container to experience itself through. And that just happens through its own implosion process. And so the implosion creates the expansion, and the expansion creates the implosion. And then it's just like this infinite means of the light expressing its eternal nature. And so when you look at observable reality, like tangible reality, I guess it's all tangible, but I guess in as far as nature is concerned, like you look at like bats or dolphins or anything that's communicating beyond, like, because ultrasound is 20 kilohertz, and there's only, I think dogs that operate at like 45, and they say that children can actually hear ultrasound, and the older you get, the less you'll be able to hear it. But and in cats, I think are like 60 kilohertz or something like that. And then like fucking dolphins and shit and different forms of those creatures, they get up to like 120 kilohertz. And bats and all of that, they're using their breath to send out a signal, to bounce that signal off of the container that they're in, whatever their environment is, to get feedback from that environment, to create, to get an image, to actually see the full light spectrum of their environment. So a bat or whatever, or a dolphin, whatever, they are releasing that sound with their breath. Every breath they take, they're generating that sound, and that bounces off the environment, and that delivers their vision to them. And then the things that they eat, the insects that they eat, they operate at an even higher kilohertz, so that they can hear the bats coming. It's like the defense system. So like you got these insects, and insects moving, you hear the harmony of the insects, the sounds of the insects, they're operating at, they can hear an even quieter shit. So the bat is coming, the bat's releasing its sonar, its echolocation. I mean, because the breath is essentially echolocation. Like if you look at it, like there's this will that's like in superposition, and like through your breath is how you connect with it, this ultimate will. It's like this echolocation that you're getting feedback from. It's like, all right, you're getting closer, you're getting closer, you're getting closer, you're getting closer. So the bat is sending that shit off, trying to find its food, trying to find its way, avoiding its predators. And then its prey are also getting that signal so they know to run, But, and it's the same thing like with a dog whistle. You don't hear it because it's at a finer sound, but a dog hears it because a dog is trained to hear the breath, the signal from rodents, which is at that frequency. Because the prey, it attracts the predator, and the predator attracts the prey. You know what I'm saying? Like the predator, it's like a tandem. They work they're not separated. You know what I mean? They're part of a spectrum. So like, it's the same thing goes for mating. It's like you're operating at a certain frequency, and your breath is communicating with the world, and you're getting a certain image of the world. You're getting a certain image of yourself. because the more that you get in touch with the breath, the more insight you have, more inner vision that you have. You're getting a greater echolocation of yourself within you. You get circulation through the whole system, and then you can see like what isn't you. You can start to scan and see like, all right, these areas have inertia in them. They're dead. They're just vacant. They need to have circulation brought back through them. So I communicate with these areas, so I can inhabit my whole body, so that I can send off the whole signal, and then I can get actual feedback, actual signal communicating back with me, and I can see myself even more through this relationship or whatever it is, that comes from whatever connection, interconnection that comes from that output. And, that giving creates a receiving. So that's what I was saying, like in the other post, like you have to be in touch with yourself for somebody to feel you. You have to be able to hear yourself. You have to be able to listen to tell that someone can even hear you. And that's just the you have to be able to see inside, or have vision in general in life, so that you can tell someone can recognize you and they really actually see you. They're not seeing your glitter. They see the gold. They see the actual you, the real light. And you can communicate from that point instead of communicating from a point of distraction, because that is what lust is. The point of distraction. It's a point of inertia in two people, a point of resistance. Some people will go deep into, for the sake of the conversation, it's a spectrum. So say some people, they don't know how to control their sexuality and they're afraid. So they say like, I'm going to just rack up bodies. I'm going to have sex with a bunch of people to build my confidence artificially. And then some people will go so inside themselves that they avoid, the opportunity to experience themselves sexually. They're the same. And they have the same relationship. It's just inverted. So they can, even though they go about it in different ways, they're the same. So they could end up in the same. They could end up in a relationship together, just because they're in the same point of distraction or inertia inside their same point of resistance. They're resisting the same thing. They just going about it a different way. You say somebody's resisting becoming a parent, or somebody's resisting becoming responsible in some way, and somebody goes about it, but they try to be overly responsible, and then that creates problems. And then you have people that just slack off and give up completely, and then those people come together as a relationship because they have the same point of distraction. It's not a point of attraction. It's not actual attraction. Attraction is actual creation. Like I'm driven to actually create. I'm not here to fragment and distract and fuck off and not be myself. I'm only doing things that are myself. So it's the point of distraction that people are experiencing. But the breath, I feel like, makes it more difficult the more that you acknowledge it and then utilize it as much as you can. I feel like it just, you have to take care. I feel like life just becomes more magical the more that you accept the breath. You accept responsibility of receiving and transmitting the whole truth. And you have to receive and transmit the whole breath, so that you can communicate with the environment correctly, so that you can get the correct feedback from it. So that, because everything that's for you is, you have to be yourself to get it. And then the only way to do that is to fully inhabit your body, so you can fully express yourself, and there's no editing in the expression. It's just flowing from the core of your being, and you just being yourself, you know what I mean? And yeah. And so I wanted to, I guess, end on this note here with as far as like dreaming is concerned. If you sleep on your side, you're gonna scrunch your lungs. Your lungs, one lung will be on top of the other lung. The diaphragm won't expand correctly, and you won't really be able to fully relax. If you sleep on your belly, same thing. You're suffocating yourself. People are suffocating themselves to go into unconsciousness. They're not going into dreams. They are insomniacs, because somnia means to dream. And the only way you really dream is if you fully retain a dream. Everything else is like, even you almost basically asleep in the dream if it comes back. is unconscious, it's fragmented, you blacked out all night, you didn't participate in the so-called dream. You basically were asleep in your dreams. You know, you're not an active participant in the time when you're the most conscious, because that's when consciousness is aware of itself. If you are uh, in dream mode, actually dreaming, and you're not in memories, it's a difference. So like when you're on your back, your lungs can fully expand. And I feel like when you're on your back, like you can only really sleep or dream, lay down as long as you need to. If you lay on your side, you're gonna pass out. Or you lay on your stomach or your belly, you're gonna pass out. And you can stay down way longer than you would. If you stay on your back, you're gonna dream, and then you reach a point where your body collects itself enough and creates enough balance to where you either gotta eliminate, get up and go to the bathroom, or get up and do breath work, and then you can maybe try to lay back down. But most people, if they lay on their back, they might dream, they might have sleep paralysis or whatever, depending on what they ate. And then they'll wake up, and then in order to go back to bed, they lay on their side or lay on their belly so that they can suffocate themselves back into unconsciousness. But that's not dreaming. And that's why you're not really charging. And that's what I was saying too. Like, if you know anything about electrical currents, like charge doesn't flow in the same direction as power. So you have a charge going in one direction, and the electrons, and yet that's going in another direction. Power is going in one direction, charge is going into another. It's thermodynamics. It's electrodynamics. So you have the same thing with the breath. As you exhale, it's just like the bubble collapsing. The lungs are pushing in to exhale, and they push out to inhale. So like there's no vacuum, and it's just pushing. So there's no pulling or sucking. You're pushing. So as you push out, you're releasing the light, the heat. When you exhale, you're releasing heat. So that charges the atmosphere, that charges the lattice, this ether, this environment that we live in. And so like through thermodynamics or electrodynamics, it's like one man enter, one man leave. You exhale, you release that light, then you actually get charge. I mean, you actually get power. You release charge and you get power. You're charging the environment, and then you get power. That's what comes in. You exhale charge, inhale power. It's the same thing with a light switch. It's not sending charge to the light. You flip the light switch on, that charges the environment, and the environment drives power into the light bulb. And I know it just sounds crazy, but electricity does not run through wires. Electricity creates a disturbance in the field, and the wire guides that disturbance and creates a circuit in your room or your area into where you turn the light switch on, it disturbs the area, the atmosphere, and that drives power through that charge from your circuit, from your wires, that drives that charge creates a disturbance in the atmosphere that powers your light. So it's the same thing with the breath. It's the same thing with stars, and you can say it's the same thing with people, souls, original man, or people that have original man in them have souls, and they are stars. They are portals. And then I'm going to talk about this in more detail with my guests on Saturday, because they brought it to my attention. Like, you got your eukaryotic or eukaryote cells, like they say animals, plants, people. They're eukaryotic, and then you have archaea, which is like one form of another form of cell, and then you have prokaryotes or whatever. And the archaea and the prokaryotes, they don't have nucleus, and the eukaryotes have a nucleus. So you have, and it's the same thing among all kingdoms, whether it be animals, plants, fungi, whatever, is in any culture or environment. You have a creator and you have parasites and you have your in betweens. So you have original man is like your eukaryotes. They have a soul, they have a core, they have a light generator, autotrophic. They have a light and they generate light. And then you have your archaea, which is like archons, and that's like your go-betweens. They work between. They're like programs that could go either way. They could be used against or for. And then you have your prokaryotes, which is just the archaea and the prokaryotes they don't have nucleus. They don't have souls, and so, but the prokaryotes are like your Scythians, your the Edomite, Scythian, Canaanite mixes that we see at this point. These human-like creatures that don't have souls, and they're basically human. They're like personified fungus that are trying to consume as much light from the autotrophic eukaryotes on the human level or the man level as possible, and that's pretty much. Maybe that's what's being, I don't know, like what my guest is going to say, like that's what's being expressed in Shem, Ham, and Japheth, is that you got these three, that's also being expressed in these three biblically or what, but I'm eager to see what they're going to say to break that down next Saturday, to really go into detail about the three kingdoms of being, you got man, human, and then mankind. The three, eukaryote, archaea, and prokaryote, and I can't wait to hear what they got to say about it. So it should be interesting, man. I think I'm just gonna end on that one, man. Oh no, I wanted to say, I said war is just force merging. You know what I mean? War is deception, and war. Like I feel like at the top you have an amicable merger, because like I feel like Russia and America was always allies the whole time, and they made bank off of selling arms during the Cold War. And they were great allies in World War II. They were great allies during the Civil War. Russia supported the North. So I feel like they've always been allies the whole time. And then they split Germany, and they split the scientists. Half of them went to America, started NASA. Half of them went to the USSR. And I feel like they've never been against each other the whole time. So at the top, it's an amicable merger. Germany eventually becomes the third or fourth largest holder of gold in the world after World War II. And they've only been a country technically since 1990. So, or 1989. 1990 is when the wall came down. 1989 was an agreement to merge, to become one country happened. But that's only fucking 35 years. And they got the third or fourth most gold out of all the countries in the world. So I don't think that you would say that Hitler lost the war. It's just that, like, when you look at movies, you're looking at the CIA, so that's why the Khazars control it. So, like, you look at, like, Inglourious Bastards, at the end, the one dude, the Austrian dude from Django Unchained and a bunch of other shit, that dude, he's like, in Inglourious Bastards, he ends up snitching on Hitler and giving up his position and everything and working with the Allies. And so in his deal in doing that, he's like, when it comes out in the history books, you say I was a double agent. I need y'all to give me a house in America. I was working with the British. I was a triple agent. I was working with the British, the Germans, and the U.S. the whole time. And he's just lying and then creating a history so that he can live out his life in America. So I feel like that's really what happened. Like, it was just a merger, and some people just got to go away and go underground. You know what I mean? Whether literally underground to North Pole, Antarctica, from Argentina, wherever, however you theorize, it could be that way, whatever. But I feel like war is amicable at the top. The leadership, they know, like, all right, we tight. But at the bottom is deception that causes physical bloodshed and actual physical kinetic war. and the peasants end up killing each other. And there's then that kind of, through that monitoring of that process, the people at the top, they like, all right, let's guide this and create a narrative and create a story, create a history. And that's what war is. War is deception. Art of war, man. War is deception. And that deception causes people to hurt each other and themselves. So, last thing I want to say though, when people do psychedelics, they become more relaxed than they ever are naturally when they're sober. So then their diaphragm can expand more fully, and they're not used to it. So then when they go to breathe, their lungs don't feel like it's being fully filled. It's like, oh shit, the normal breath that I would take isn't filling my lungs up, and my lungs are relaxed, and my diaphragm's relaxed enough to expand fully. So it feels like I'm short of breath because I'm not able to really get that pressure on my pelvic floor and on my diaphragm. So I'm not fully expanding. But if you go into it with like years of breath work, long breath work sessions, and you've experienced deep calm from breath work, then you do psychedelics, and it's not like you're foreign to that level of relaxation. It's like, now it's more so like, okay, this is like almost a supplement, in some ways, to like keep me focused on the breath for an even longer amount of time and see that I can expand my breath, my diaphragm even more, and hold it in a more sustained time. I can hold my breath a lot longer. So I think that's a lot of what the panic is. Like, people haven't developed a personality, because each drug creates a personality. You do weed, then that creates a personality. So in the beginning, you're like, I don't have a personality to cope with this experience. So it's like strange to me. And then you do LSD, and you don't have no personality for that yet. And then eventually, if you are calm enough and you are yourself, then like you can develop a personality for that drug, to cope with it, if you so choose, and that's when it becomes dangerous. If people are going into these drugs and they're not really calm on their own sober, then they're just going to generate a personality to cope. And then that is where the addiction comes in, because they get addicted to being that personality. And it's just another ego, That's why it's an ego trip and an ego death, and a guilt trip. And so yeah, man, I really would like this live to save. I hope this live, I don't want to say hope, but I'd like this live to save. If it don't, that's going to suck, man. I'm going to go through these questions or whatever comments you guys left. But it'll be on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. It's $4 a month. You get at least 4 hours of content. You probably going to get like 8 hours this month. I think last few months been 8 hours. So I'm going to keep it up. And you get at least 4 hours for $4 a month. And Patreon raised up the taxes on me, and I'm still keeping it $4 for y'all, man. So fuck with me, man. Let's see. I'm going to do it on my live on Saturday. I'll break this topic down more. Yeah, Nadan and Waydan. Rita Huahu Ching. Huahu Ching. Yep. Yeah, man. Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. How do you figure all of this out? I mean, it's just, my mom helped me out a lot when I was a child. She was really always contrary to the narratives. She lost her job by questioning the Holocaust in the early 2000s, and I feel like that made it even worse. Like, her motivation to be like, this is bullshit. The Aryans are the Iranians. Yeah, I think that's about it for you guys, man. I think that was all the questions. Patreon.com/Taylor Durham, man. Thank you guys for tuning in, man. Appreciate you guys' time. And Patreon.com/Taylor Durham. Yeah, man. I mean, the Saturn box, the black box stuff, man. You know, even the cube, the Saturn cube shit. However you want to look at it, man. I think you guys know. You're asking questions, you already know. I'm gonna try to post this thing. We'll see what we get.